Sorry. I always keep this little card over my webcam. Oh, darn it. I forgot to turn the heat off. You know what? I'm just going to leave it on. It's cold in here. Never mind. Um, I can turn it off so you don't have that background noise, but this is how, because, I'm still a little bit paranoid, but this is how I keep the webcam covered when the computer's open now. I used to just always tape over my webcams because I never used them. But I'm like, oh, well, the taping thing is not really the best idea if you're going to actually use it now and then. So I just put this whole, it's just, your, what do you call it, card paper you can get that will go on your printer, and just cut several of these for each computer and then just slip it over the top just in case. Though I typically shut this computer when I'm not shooting a live show anyway. But that's just me. So hello, Deb and T and Sandra. And who else? I thought I saw somebody else. There's a couple more people. Bubble Wrap, Still Pink, and Happy to Learn so far. So I'm going to go ahead and do my greeting, even though not everybody's in here yet. But hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. Thanks for coming in. God is good all the time. So today is a Rain Country Q&A part 7. Number 7, not part, number 7. So this is going to be the weekly deal that I do on Wednesdays, unless something else comes up and I decide to go a different direction. But I like the idea of having the Q&A on Wednesdays, and that way I can have a chance to approach a lot of the questions that come in the chat that I might have missed, or maybe cover them again a little more in depth, or questions that have come in on my other social media outlets, be it my other YouTube channel, my Rumble channel, my, X or Instagram, or even Facebook, though I don't check that one as much as I should. I'm on all of those, the X, the Instagram, and the Facebook, so that I can have a place to make an announcement if I got an important announcement to make, such as, hey, everybody, my YouTube channel is gone. They decided to totally delete me altogether. However, I've learned some things in the past couple of days that in some ways makes me feel better, but also is more discouraging. And if you saw my post that I put on the main channel, and I provided a link to the Patreon for free. Remember, everything over there is free. I don't lock any of my posts. But I could go into a little more there than I think I can here. So we'll see. But at any rate, I'm going to be talking. I'll be getting into the questions in about 15 minutes from right now. But I want to share with you as best I can about what I've learned without saying too much and getting myself in trouble again. So you getting it? Oh, you're talking to somebody else. Sorry, I'm butting in again. And Tyler, I wish I would have been able to stay to hear. I came in late as it was. And then, because I'm going to try to make it a habit to at least catch a couple of yours, and everything that was being said from the time I got in there, I was like, man, this is good stuff. I wish I could stay. So I might have to try to go back and catch the last bit of it. But I needed to get the video shot. And my vocal cords are still not happy. I didn't give them a long enough rest, because then I was talking to my sister. So I'll probably be using my elderberry tincture spray quite a bit, because they're a little swollen. Anyway, so again, hello to everyone else that's been coming in. I saw, who else did I see? There's Moni, there's Lady Jane, obviously Tyler and Darlene. Oh man, lots of people. It's the humidity, y'all. What a name. Anyway, Debbie Kruger, Denise. So Thistle Moon, hello everyone. And I know there's going to be more. And sorry, I can't say hi to everyone. I'll be on here all day just saying hi to everyone. Too much screaming at Patrick. No. I don't scream at him, but, we just use the skillet. The truth is, Patrick and I rarely get into arguments. I probably did a lot more when we were younger, but even then, things were pretty tame, and we don't get into screaming, yelling kind of arguments, and never have. But uh, it's funny what happens when you age. You kind of mellow out. That's what it should be, though. You learn. It's not just about what you would. I think a lot of the problems is people go into marriages thinking they can change a person, and that's like the biggest mistake people should. The worst assumption anyone can ever make. You should never marry someone and assume you're going to change them. What you have to do is look at how you can change yourself. If you truly love that person, you're going to learn how to change yourself. And not to say that that person might not need some changing as well, because we're all imperfect and we all have areas we can grow and improve. But, learning how to say, you know what, this really irritates the heck out of me when this person does this. I'm going to learn how to deal with it and not let it irritate me, because it's no big deal. And then the bigger deals, obviously, you've got to sit down and talk about. So, boy, my eyes, what I think I figured out is these lights, because I have one on each side. The longer I sit here, the more they start to bother my eyes. I mean, they are LED, and they're pretty close because I'm trying to get good lighting. Anyway, coupled with the look is terrifying, but you're right. So what I'll talk about until I get into the questions is I'll tell you what happened if you didn't have a chance to go to that post and see it. Again, I'm going to try to be careful with how I word things, because sometimes I don't even know what to say anymore. But yesterday, somebody had sent me a video of another channel that has over, I think it's 1.6 something million subscribers. And just the day before, they've been on YouTube for like 10 years. They put out a video going through all the same things that I've been seeing happening on my channel. Completely different type of channel. Completely different. And this guy was playing. In fact, I linked to that video down below. So it's called Shadiversity. And he even played clips from other people's channels. Again, a lot of these were unrelated. Like one guy has a guitar channel, seeing the same kind of stuff happening in their analytics. And it started at the same time, right out a year ago, this guy said. And I'm like, yes, it was right out a year ago that suddenly things changed. So I think it was me. So, I mean, the thing that made me feel good about it was like, okay, well, then it isn't just me, I knew it wasn't just me, but what I mean isn't just this type of content either. It's all kinds of content, all across the board. So what's happening is, and this is the kind of thing that if I hope that right now at this moment, the people that were calling me a liar are listening to what I'm saying right now, because I've been accused of being a liar and being greedy and just wanting more money. Excuse me? I've taken a 75% deduction in my pay for my full-time job. And you're calling me a liar? You can just kindly leave. But at any rate, this is proof, for one, that I'm not lying, because there's plenty of channels out there saying the same exact thing. And when he was showing his analytics, I'm like, yep. And then you start getting this little bead of hope, because then you'll have a video that does pretty good and it starts to go up, and you start to see things kind of going up, and then boom, and then it drops down to even lower than it was before. That's exactly what I've seen in the past few days. 2 weeks ago, I had a video come out that was doing really good. The best that I've seen one of the best I've seen over the past year. I'm like, yay, maybe my channel is going to be saved. And then boom, suddenly I'm down to even lower than I was. 75% cut in pay, 75% cut in subscriber gain, subscribers being removed against their will from my channel, subscribers having my videos hidden from their feed. So people are still subscribed, will have no idea I'm putting out content unless they go directly to my channel and click on videos, the video tab. Otherwise, they won't have a clue. So this has been happening for a year. I mean, stuff like that's been happening for a long time, but usually it's just in dribs and drabs here and there. And a lot of it's just glitchy stuff, but this is to the extreme. And this guy said the same exact thing I said. It's like, he goes, in the 10 years I've been on YouTube, I've never seen this before. And I was like nodding my head going, yes, exactly. That's what I've been trying to say. So on one hand, I got people calling me liars or thinking I'm making it up, or just whatever, maybe think that I'm seeing something that's not happening. And I'm here to tell you it absolutely 100% is happening. And it's not just me, and it's not just my type of content. So though on one hand, it's like, okay, I'm glad it's not just me. On the other hand, I think this guy, if I remember in his video, said he contacted YouTube and said, hey, what's going on here? And they basically said, we're just not going to promote your stuff anymore. And he learned that what's happening is YouTube has chosen to promote into anyone's subscribers. It doesn't matter the content you prefer, the content you follow, the channels you're subscribed to, they don't care. What they're going to promote to you is what is the most trending thing, because that's the thing that's going to earn them the most money. And they want to get you on board with that too. One of those being reactionary videos. So if you don't know what that is, that's people, and there are a couple channels I follow that do this. And when I need a comedy relief, because some of them are comedy relief kind of thing, like Tyler Zed or Zeducation is one of them. I'll watch every now and then. But it's where people will do, like they'll play a TikTok video or something, the whole video will be all these different little TikTok videos or whatever. And then they'll have a reaction to it. And usually they're funny, and it's just fun. Right. But that's some of the kind of content. That's the only stuff they want to promote to you now. That, and there's other kinds too, but that was the one that he mentioned. I'm like, yeah, I can see that, because every time a new channel comes out that has that style of video, they blow up practically overnight. So that tells you that's what the majority of people want. And like I said, I enjoy a little bit of that now and then, but it's not really conducive to education and making yourself any smarter. It's just something to make you laugh. So they don't care. Again, they don't care about what you want as a subscriber. So they don't find promoting or showing you the channels you follow in your home feed. They're not interested. They're interested in getting you pointed in the direction that's going to make them the most money. So it's not about my greed, especially when I'm making far less money than I was over a year ago. And I'm just trying to hang on. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck is going on and what can I do to balance it out, so I don't have to give this up entirely or pour all my time into a different kind of job. Because we still have, we're out of debt, but there's always taxes, and they never get lower. And just got another thing in the mail, another, voters thing about yet another levy for something. And it's like, no, it's, to me, no, always no. It's no. Not just for our sake, but for the sake of our children and our grandchildren. Because every time we pass something else through, it's going to stay forever, no matter what they say, or they'll find an excuse to renew it. Always. And if the people, what we've seen here was when the people have voted down another one of these initiatives or levies, they'll just in a few months push it even harder until they get it through. I'm sorry, but I'm really, really incensed right now by a lot of things. Our hospital, I know the other day I was talking about it, but learned some more things since. How they totally soak people. Our local hospital is, we could drive all the way to Seattle and get care there and pay far less. even counting the cost of the trip. Port Angeles is 60 miles away, and they charge far less for things that should cost more than they do here for things that should cost less. And then if you're not paying a certain amount on whatever's still due on your bill because insurance is crud and they didn't cover it all, if you're not paying X amount of dollars every month, they turn you over to collections just like that. There was a time that didn't happen. You were allowed to pay whatever you were able to pay. And they, at the time, seems to me, I remember it was against the law for them to turn you over to collections as long as you were paying monthly. I've heard so many stories of people around here being turned over to collections. Then, to top it all off, guess what I found out? The hospital has a GoFundMe so they could get a mammogram machine. Excuse me? What? And even if they do, okay, so we're going to pay for that. And then what's going to happen? If you were to go get that, which I don't personally, I have my reasons, but if you were to go do that, they're going to charge 3 times as much here than they would if you drove to town. So why would I do that here? I'm just like, I'm so mad. I'm so mad about all that. But then, but anyway, so back to the topic about, YouTube and all this that's going on and how weird it is. And knowing it's not just me, but knowing, kind of getting this feeling like from what he was saying, it almost sounds like there's no hope to be able to continue to make any kind of living wage. I mean, it's already getting to the point where it's, if it keeps dropping, I won't be able to afford to depend on this anymore. Though I love my job. I love what I do. I love being able to put my information out in a form that people can glean from it without having to pay anything. But now see, it helps you understand more why you're seeing more and more commercials in people's videos and seeing more and more people doing memberships and seeing more and more people promoting certain things, And I feel like it just really goes against my principles, and I really don't want to do that. So I'd like to find another way. So to top it off, because of all that, I decided, you know what? I know what it was. Somebody asked me a question. There was a comment this morning on a certain substance. They were asking me about it and if I knew anything about it and how to make it. And it's not the one that I'm usually bringing up, or one of the two. This one's completely different. It's something I've never used and know very little about. But other than I know, it's one of those that is also in the taboo list. I'll say though that one of the words in it is mineral. And so, yeah, that's just as taboo as any of the others I've mentioned. So anyway, I go in there to double check and make sure I was right before I told this person that, even if I did know anything about it, I wouldn't be allowed to talk about it here because it's a taboo thing. And I was right. No, I agree, Darlene. It doesn't. 7 times will give you, 7 of them can cause you because of what they're doing to you. So at any rate, so I'm in there and I'm thinking, well, I probably should look through some of this other stuff while I'm in here, see if anything else has changed. And I found a section that I don't recall seeing before. And if I had seen it, I didn't think to look in it. And it was basically about, I can't remember what they called it. So I found in there that you are also not allowed to tell people about, okay, let's say like over 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when my grandson Jace was born and his mom was desperately trying to nurse him, but he was losing weight. Well, come to find out, she just didn't have enough milk production. And so I recommended something completely natural, especially considering the fact that baby formula at that time was there was a massive shortage. And even if there wasn't, it's not something I promote. And during that same time, there were certain tests going on and certain things found in the formula that I don't even know if I can talk about that without getting in trouble. But in that video, I did talk about it. And I'm like, because I did a video about it, because I wanted to share these different things I found out and just how well Jace thrived on this certain natural substance that comes from goats. That should make it pretty clear. And he thrived and he gained weight and he did so good on it. And it's a long time. Maybe that's what people have done forever. When a mom couldn't nurse or a baby was adopted or whatever. And so, but no, that's also taboo. Can you imagine that? And so I'm like, man, what's it going to be next? What can't we talk about next? You know, you can't even just going back to the old ways of any kind. Is it going to be wrong soon to talk about, eating those fresh tomatoes right out of your greenhouse that taste so much better than the disappointing ones in the store? Is that going to be taboo as well? I don't know. I don't know what to expect. And I'll say this again. I know a lot of people say, oh, it's all going to change because we're under a different administration. Well, I don't put my faith in that. I just don't. If it happens, great. I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to see that kind of change, but I don't put my faith in any government or any man. I just don't. So I want to believe everything has been said. I really want to. But, when it comes to a lot of these different types of things. But I've seen far too many promises from any administration that never get kept. And so if it happens, great. I'll pray that it does. But I'm not going to assume that it will. Because here's the thing. This platform can still say, but we're a private entity. We have a right to make our own rules. And they do. And they can. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of the latest scuttlebutt on that. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to look really quick and see if there's any questions that may have come in. I haven't seen anything in all caps, so I'm assuming not. Yep. Tyler, absolutely. Many of our grandparents, yep. That was common. It was very, very common. And I have a testimony, my grandson is a testimony of how great it is. And what got me is her doctor was like, I don't know about that. You should be putting him on human formula. And I said, there's nothing human about it. It's either made from cow milk or it's made from soy. I would go towards the cow milk one if I had to, but definitely not soy, especially not for a little boy. Kidding me? Anyway, that's not human. You should give him human formula. What a dumb statement. How dumb can it get? Anyway, I'm going to get to the questions, starting off with the one I put first. What was the one I put first? Oh, it was about the fleas. So on my last live show, somebody was asking me about how to get rid of fleas naturally. So I have a video that I linked to down below. I did several years ago on what works for me. So I'm not going to go into all of that here since I talk about it in that video and I talk about it in that last live show. But one of the things I did mention was I highly recommend doing first. If you can do this with a cat, because I think it was Aline. I think she was asking about for her cat. And I know this is going to be a lot harder, but Dawn dish liquid, it's got to be the blue kind. Dawn dish liquid, you wash them in that just like you would any other kind of dog shampoo or whatever. I don't buy dog shampoo because it's highly priced garbage. It is worthless. Dawn dish liquid is a lot cheaper. I know it's not supernatural, but it's cheaper and it's going to do the trick to at least get the live fleas off the body because it strips them of their protective coating. Now, the question I was going to approach was that somebody asked, I didn't see during the, I don't think I saw it. Somebody, maybe I did see it, but somebody asked if Myers, like the Myers dish soap, would be a good one to use. No, no. I've tried different, more natural types of dish soaps. They don't work the same way, at least not on the dog, because the dog's only had, we've had Cody for over 10 years, I think. And I think he's had fleas a total of 3 times in that whole 10 years. And every time I got rid of them with just using Dawn dish liquid and then the natural things such as the neem powder, diatomaceous earth, homemade vinegar, and some essential oils to help keep them away, such as cedar and lemon mixed together. So there's just a quick thing. Yarrow, powdered up yarrow is another good one. Anyway, how I know this is by just knowing what works best on grease stains. And I've tried all different kinds of dish soaps. And the only one that really gets a grease or oil stain out of clothes is the blue Dawn dish liquid. Well, then I noticed later after that show the other day, as I was going through the chat looking for questions that I missed, I noticed one lady said, or no, maybe it was in a comment under the video later. She said that, she said, yep, it's got to be the blue kind. Only Dawn dish liquid is the only one that will do it. Because she was like a groomer for many years. And I'm like, so yeah, we keep Dawn dish liquid on hand for those 2 things, for grease stains in clothes and for if the animals get fleas, because it works. I don't even wash my dishes with it. That's just all we use it for. Or if anything else gets grease that we really need to get off. And it's the best for that. It might be a brand name. It might be not be all natural, but it'll work. So like I said, when I washed a couple times when I washed Cody with that and he had fleas, I actually saw the fleas just falling off of him, dead. Because, their protective coating has been stripped, and I would assume that means the eggs as well. But still, I always would follow up with the neem and diatomaceous earth, diatomaceous earth. And because I made a powder blend of the neem powder, diatomaceous earth, and then my own powdered homegrown yarrow. Because yarrow is also the neem and the diatomaceous earth will kill the fleas and the eggs and whatnot. And then the yarrow will help keep them away. So anyway, let's see. Blue Dawn works great with vinegar as a spray to kill weeds. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew vinegar, but I didn't think about the Dawn. That's interesting. It probably helps it to stick to the plant too, so that it fries it well. I would use vinegar mixed with salt, just a cheap salt in that case, to kill all vegetation. And back when I cared out front here in our driveway, well, on this side of the house, but I don't care anymore. I just let whatever grow, whatever. I don't care. But yeah, that's what I would use. And just on a hot day, so the sun has to be shining directly on that, and then a salt and vinegar mixture and pour that on there. And that will kill it, especially on a hot day. It's got to get down into the roots and just fry it. It's the combination of salt and vinegar together. Let's see. Wormwood plant is supposed to repel fleas in the yard. There's actually a lot of great plants that will help. I think catnip was another one. It's been so long since I did that video. But if you go watch the video, I think I list a few different things. Okay, so then the next question I wanted to tackle was in regards to tinctures. And this one was about, and I've had this one a few times. And I have poison ivy to control. I'm not sure what to tell you on that one. We don't have poison ivy around here. But anyway, maybe somebody in chat can help you with that. So the tinctures. So some people will, they'll put their tinctures in storage. And like with me, I don't bother straining my tincture until I need it. I just don't bother. I don't think it matters. Some people do after, 8 weeks or whatever, 2 months, because I never let my tinctures, or let me rephrase that. My standard rule of thumb is infused oils, tinctures, extracts, they must infuse for 2 months. That's just my standard rule of thumb. After that, however long they want to keep going. So, I think the question on the poison ivy was to control the poison ivy in the garden, not so much cure poison ivy like from contact. At any rate, because I saw the jewel weed, and I think that maybe I'm wrong. Feisty, I think that says feisty one. I think that's in reference to using topically to help heal it, but I believe the question is in regards to the garden itself, controlling it within the garden. So our biggest bane when it comes to plants is morning glory, also known as chokeweed, or there's another name for it. And it just takes over my front yard garden all the time. And so it's going to be a pain this year we're going to try to dig up as much of it as we can. But at any rate, I'm getting sidetracked. So the question about the tincture. So the longer you leave them sit, especially with the herbs or spices, whatever in there, the more apt you are to have sediments at the bottom of the bottle or jar. That's to be expected, because the little bits and pieces of those things are just kind of falling off. It's sort of, breaking down, and it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's not going to hurt you. I just strain through a fine cloth, cheesecloth. Usually I have some really fine woven cheesecloth that was sent to me by Jen. What's her channel name now? It used to be Jam in the Nut House, and now I can't think what her channel name is. But she doesn't really put out a lot of videos, but she's a very, very sweet lady. And I don't know where she found this particular cheesecloth, because I've had some that was it was way too meshy. But this stuff was fine woven, so it works really good. I'll use it for, cheese making and whatnot. But you can also just take a good quality, like a linen, fine woven linen, fine, muslin, cotton, as long as it's all 100% cotton, natural. And you can just strain it through that, and that'll get all the little bits and pieces if you don't want them in there. But they're not going to hurt you if they're in there. So sediments in your tinctures are totally fine. And I wouldn't worry about it. Just strain it out if it bothers you, or not. If it doesn't bother you, it's still good. So sometimes I have tinctures that sit for a couple of years before I ever get around to them, because I don't need them. I just want them ready in case I do. Sometimes longer than that. Sometimes I'll be like, maybe I should go ahead and strain this tincture or this extract so it's ready to go when and if I ever need it. It's just nice having them there. So next question. Somebody asked, I know a lot of you already know the answer to this one. Somebody asked, is a beet green vinegar possible? Absolutely. And here's the deal. And I linked to my most recent, most thorough vinegar making video down below, which I said, make any kind of vinegar. And when I say you can make any kind of vinegar, or how to make any kind of vinegar, that is exactly what I mean. As long as whatever you're using is, preferably organically grown, organically raised, and edible, then yeah. So any kind of fruit, grain, herb, and anything that's been that's either fresh or dried. That can be freeze-dried or dehydrated, preferably not frozen. You can make vinegar out of frozen goods, but you may have to add some kind of starter or some other fresh material to make sure it gets going. Because I found trying to make vinegar out of things solely stuff that had been frozen previously doesn't work very well. I've done that with apple peels. I'm like, I got so much vinegar right now. I'll just put these apple peels in the freezer and then come back and make vinegar out of them later. And at first it seemed like it was okay, like it was bubbling, but it never did great, like my fresh apple peel, apple core vinegar. And then the same thing happened when I decided to take after juicing a lot of my grapes that I'd previously frozen, instead of throwing all the skins and seeds out to the chickens after I strained it, I decided I'll take some of this and make it into grape vinegar. None of those turned out very good. And I didn't think about it till later that, it was because had been previously frozen and I didn't add a starter to it. So you can use frozen goods, but the thing is you'll want to add a starter, like my fermentation starter, which was made from from dried or fresh goods. That can be peels, that can be herbs, fruits, it doesn't matter. You just sugar, vinegar, and a starter start the same way. Sugar, water, and it could be raw honey, that works too. And I recommend organic cane sugar if you're going to go with sugar. I don't recommend any high mineral sugars like coconut sugar, molasses, anything that's dark, brown sugar, because the high minerals can really slow down and even prevent a good ferment. So that's why either raw honey or organic cane sugar. And so anyway, one of those, water, and your fresh or dried produce of some kind, even if it's just scraps, like mango peels, peach peels, whatever. Anything you want. Beet greens, some of your excess herbs from the garden, like when I'll take a bunch of garlic greens and oregano, maybe throw some sage or whatever else in there and make some vinegar that I use specifically for adding to the chicken water. But it would also be really good to use in an Italian salad dressing. So yeah, make your vinegar out of whatever you want. You just got to have those basics. And then for the people that will ask, well, can I use stevia? No. Well, you can, but stevia is not a sugar. Vinegar, to turn to vinegar, it needs sugar. Same thing to make alcohol. You have to have sugar. You have to have those carbs. That's what turns to alcohol. So the sugar or the honey turns to alcohol during the process of vinegar making. And then with the oxygen exposure, this is why we go with some kind of cover, like a cotton cloth, linen cloth, a cotton dish rag, a paper coffee filter over the top. That covers just to keep bugs, dirt, and all that out. But it allows the oxygen to come in because the oxygen is going to take that alcohol and then turn that into acetic acid. Whereas if you're wanting it to become wine, then you got to deprive it from oxygen. That's why you use an airlock on your jugs when you're making wine, or your carboy, depending on how much you're making at a time. I've never done a carboy is usually like a 5-gallon jug, where I've always done just 1 gallon at a time. And that way I can maybe even have 3 or 4 going and have them all be different. But I just don't make that many different. I used to make all kinds of different meads. So I'd have like an orange spice mead, a kiwi lime mead, a raspberry mead. One time I made a pomegranate mead that turned out really good. So, and again, I'm going to keep answering questions that I know I commonly get. Difference between wine and mead is simply, a mead is a wine. It's honey wine. It's just made typically, commonly, or most commonly made just from honey and water. And the raw honey, because of all the stuff in there, would start fermenting on its own. It would have to be raw honey. But I would always add some kind of fruit for flavor, throw in some kind of fruit, mashed or whole, whatever. Like when I made the orange spice, I would toss in like a cinnamon stick, a couple of cloves, and a few orange chunks in there. That one always turned out really good. So, okay, let me look real quick and see if there's any other questions in regards to that. I'm not seeing any questions because I'm not seeing anything in all caps. Remember, if you're asking me a question, I'm going to be looking for something in all caps because I don't have time to read through everything. So, and find out you guys are all just talking to each other anyway. All right, so we did that one, Somebody, when I showed the picture of my current egg colors, I have people ask me what my chicken breeds are, specifically wanting to know which one's laying the light sage colored egg and the olive egg. Well, unfortunately, I don't fully know because I got those chickens from a friend and they were all mixed breeds. So obviously the one that's laying the olive color egg, it's actually the daughter of the one I got from my friend, and which is Roxy. And Roxy is all black, but has a little tuft of feathers on her head. So I don't know what all's in there, but I was able to figure out, obvious, when she started laying olive colored eggs, that she's got olive egger in her. And when I looked it up, come to find out, most, if not all, olive eggers have that little tuft of feathers that goes like this. And then so her daughter, she's not laying yet this season, but her daughter has started laying. So she's a mix of her and Antonio, who I don't know what all's in him, but just as I had read, Guinevere is laying an olive colored egg. I'm so glad. And she's laying every day, where Roxy was real touch and go. Like she might lay, then maybe take 2 weeks off and then lay for a few days, or lay every other day. She's not a good layer, but her daughter is. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. That's what I was hoping for. So I don't know what all's in her. And then the one that lays the sage colored egg, I know I looked it up to find, I had to look up and find what chickens lay a light sage egg. And I found a few, and the one I found, I think, is, I can't remember what the name of it was, had cream in the name. But it was the one that looked most like her, but she's all silver in color. But she's a jerk. I've decided I don't want any chicks from her. So those sage green eggs will be once she's done laying, those will be the last I get, because Ruthie is a jerk. And she's the most likely to suddenly panic, like extreme panic, and somehow get out. It's happened twice. In fact, one last year, she disappeared for several days. I was sure a dog got a hold of her. And it was all because Patrick was bringing, because the neighbor across the street, she does everything organically too. But she has like maple leaves. It's not the kind of maple tree that you can, but it's going to be a lot more watery, but it's not the maple kind of maple you get where you get the maple syrup. But anyway, and she has other trees that, always lose their leaves every year. And so she's like, hey, come get my leaves. And so she'll have them all bagged up, and then we bring them over and dump them in the gardens. So this happened both last year and this year, where Patrick's bringing the leaves back there, and she just goes into this massive panic attack and somehow gets over the fence. And I was sure something got a hold of her and that she was gone for good. And then all of a sudden I hear her next door. One day I'm out there and I just let the chickens out, and I'm like, wait a minute. I hear something it sounds like it's coming from the other side of the fence. And I kind of peek through there. There's Ruthie. So I had to go over there and get her. And then same thing happened this year, but at least she was in the front yard. I had no idea where she ended up. And I finally found her in the front. She was hiding actually in the west side garden, my herb garden bed. She was hiding in there. And when I came around the corner, she was like, but at least she's like, oh, but I know you. And I'm like, come on. So I led her through a different gateway, and she happily went through there, even though she'd never been through that gate before, or not even anywhere near that area. Weird. But she knew that she needed to get in the backyard. So I'm like, but like I say, she was a jerk. I did get some offspring from her, but they were both roosters. And one bit me while it was just young, before I knew it was a rooster. And I was picking it up to put it into the coop for the night in their own little special area. And that thing decided to grab hold of my skin like this and hang on for dear life with its beak. And I wasn't having it. I grabbed that thing by the throat, and I looked it in the eye. I said, you better let go. And it opened its beak, and it just kind of looked at me with big eyes, and then it didn't do that again. But knowing how Ruthie is, Ruthie's a jerk. I watch her with the other chickens, especially any new chickens. She's a jerk. So I don't want any more chickens like her. Not happy with her, other than her eggs, her pretty light green eggs. That's it. But But anyway, then the other two breeds I have that I know they are the Buff Orpingtons, and I have two Golden Comets, and they're great layers, and they're friendly enough. They're not as friendly as Buff Orpingtons, but they're not jumpy. They don't run from you. I mean, if you reach down and try to pick them up, they'll be like, "Ah, no, I'm not interested." But they're not jumpy. They'll come right up to you. They're great layers, but I'm not sure if I want any more of them because they're the ones that are most likely to come up on my deck and get into my pots that are up on things and knock stuff over. Oh, they make me so mad. They're so naughty. Anyway, so those are my chicken breeds. There's that long, long story about my chickens. I love my buffs though. I mean, all the way around, I just think, my personal opinion, I've only worked with a few breeds. So there's others I would like to try. I'd really like to get a black copper marin. I think they're friendly birds, if I remember correctly, in good layers, and they lay a lovely chocolate brown egg. And there was another one I wanted to try at some point, besides maybe getting my hands on a lavender Orpington. I would love that. See, I have an older hen and keep her. Wait, I'm my eyes. Sorry, I need to put my glasses on. I have an older hen and her poop is green, not laying, but eating and drinking. I'm not sure what to say about that. Does she seem healthy? I mean, maybe she's eating something that's got a lot of chlorophyll in it. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else can jump in on that one. I've never heard. I don't know. I have a gray silver chicken that lays light green eggs. It's a scarlet something, LOL, but she's sweet. Yeah, this one, the one I think Ruthie is that something with the name Cream in it. And there's a couple of them that have that in their name. Excuse me. Anyway, another question I got on Instagram this time. Whoa, there goes my pencil. Was is cornstarch okay to use in food? Well, it depends on the cornstarch. I don't use cornstarch because, I mean, it's not that I don't use corn products at all, but you know, for one, it's getting harder and harder to be able to guarantee that any corn product is going to be 100% non-GMO and organic. It's just getting harder with that. Corn and soy and cotton, I believe. Well, especially corn and soy, because of all the cross-pollination, and you just can never be fully certain. However, there's so many other things you can use besides cornstarch. So I use either organic tapioca starch or organic arrowroot powder, but there's even others like kudzu. Kudzu's another one. The texture is just like cornstarch. It has that same, you know what I mean? You know, when you feel it, you know that. And it's great for thickening and using for anything that you would use cornstarch in. So that's me. But if you're going to get cornstarch, I mean, for the price, you're just safer to go with one of those. Because getting a good organic, non-GMO cornstarch is going to be at least last I looked, it's been a long time. It could have changed by now, but it's going to be about the same as one of those others. So, yeah, she is with 9 other hens and they eat the same thing. Huh. Yeah, I'm sorry. I really don't know what to say about that. I mean, if she's healthy, I wouldn't worry about it too much if everything else seems fine. But I mean, I wouldn't also not, you might want to continue to look, do a little research and see what you can find. I mean, that's how I found out, like, why are my hens, I had, when my first 2 Buff Orpingtons to go a couple of years ago, they were 6 years old at the time. And while the other Buff Orpingtons, their combs are getting bigger and brighter red in the spring like they do just before they start laying, these 2, their combs instead of going from that pale pink they turn in the winter, they were turning purple, and they weren't getting big, and they just didn't look healthy. So I started looking it up, and it took me a while to find it, but come to find out, when their combs turn purple, that's a sign of old age and that they're probably going to be going soon. Um, and usually it's congestive heart failure at that point, and it's from old age. And sure enough, the first one, I know that's how she died. I didn't see it happen, but I was just outside the coop. She was hiding in the coop, trying to get away from the other chickens that were picking on her. The stupid black sex links we used to have. I won't have those anymore either. They're good layers, but that's about it. So anyway, and I was just outside the coop picking my snow peas, and I heard this racket in there. It was like a flap, 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 flap. And I walked in there just in time to see her taking her last breath. I cried because it was my first chicken to lose. After 6 years, it was the first chicken I lost. But then I was like, okay, what I read was right. That was clearly had to have been a heart attack. So we made sure that we took the other one out shortly after that, so she wouldn't have to go through that, because her comb looked the same. And then the next year, I had a couple more chickens, and one of them being a black sex link whose comb turned purple. And I knew she'd started off the year good laying, and then she stopped laying, her comb turned purple, and she started looking listless, and I knew that she was going out the door. So we took her out too. And when they're that old and in that condition, we don't turn them into soup. So besides, the Bible says don't eat anything that dies of itself. I think there must be a reason for that. So I figure that's, so we haven't eaten any of those when they're older, like that anyway. They're just so tough. And yeah, it's very, very tough. Okay. Next one was, how long do infused oils last? Well, a lot of that's going to depend on the type of oil you use to make your infusion. I always stick with avocado oil because it has a very long shelf life. Because it has a high tolerance to heat. So it's a lot more heat stable than olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil. The more virgin your oil is, the less tolerant to heat it will be. The more processed, more refined it is, the higher heat it can handle. And so, but avocado oil is just naturally, going to handle higher heats. That means that I can infuse it in a warm room and not worry about it. I've never had an avocado oil infusion go rancid on me. So my feeling, just in my experience, is that if you're using the right oil and storing it properly, they should last for years, if not longer. I was going to say if not months, maybe even indefinitely if stored properly. Even with the avocado oil, I'd still say, maybe store it in the coolest area you have. And to really extend the life, then maybe try vacuum sealing, because vacuum sealing fatty foods can, a lot of times it's, the two things that cause rancidity are oxygen exposure and heat. Sorry, I'm watching. What's going on out there? Okay. Somebody going by very slowly, but with a big truck and trailer. Okay. It's fine. They're just going really slow. So I don't know what's happening. I didn't know if they're pulling in over here or not. So sorry. I've got, if you ever seen the tour of this room, I've got a video on here on my other channel where I do a tour of this room. And I don't know if it was before or after we put in the sewing room here, or it's just basically a false wall to make a sewing room. But I think I did a tour after we got at least the pool table set up and the foosball table and a few other things. But anyway, because this used to be a dance room, and Patrick designed it for the sake of my dance classes. And so we have these little narrow windows on that wall over there because that's where my mirrors are. So I wanted natural light to be able to come in, but I also wanted to be able to have big chunks of wall space for putting my mirrors. He did the same thing on this wall here, but we never ended up putting mirrors over there because mirrors are expensive. So anyway, so it's like window, mirror, window, mirror, window, mirror, window, mirror. Yeah. So I can see these little narrow, and I see things. And sometimes you're like, wait, what is it? What is it? Because you're only getting this little narrow view. It's kind of funny. But anyway, it was a good setup. It worked out really good for my classes. And then in front of each mirror is a ballet bar. But yeah, if you go find that video, it's like tour of the old dance martial arts room, something like that. There's that. What are they doing? It just seems weird. Maybe they're lost. They're probably just lost. I don't think they're looking for Bella's house. So usually when it doesn't look like the type of people that'd be looking for Bella's house, because we live in Forks. So you get, there's an old house over here, and it wasn't the house a movie was shot in because those movies were not shot here. But there's a house that looks actually quite a bit like the one that was in the original, in the first, I don't know. We only watched the first two, and I was like, these are dumb. I don't want to watch anymore. But anyway, it was only out of curiosity to say, well, how did they portray our town, especially since they didn't even film it here? But that house over there, they decided to designate as Bella's house, the Swan House. And so because of that, it's on the next street over. It's like you get so many tourists coming through here all the time, especially in the summer. Where's Bella's house? Where's Bella's house? So I can usually tell if it's a car full of women or young girls. Like at one time I was walking the dog and I'm out there and this guy pulls up next to me and I can tell he's got just a whole bunch of girls and his wife in there. And I'm like, you looking for Bella's house? And he starts laughing. And I said, it's just right around the corner over there. Anyway, it was kind of funny. I mean, I could just tell by the look on the guy's face. It's like, honey, let's get this dumb thing over with. So it made me laugh. Anyway, so the oils. So yeah, they should last for a long time. But it's still trying to make sure you're working through those infused oils in order the best you can. But like I said, I've never had any of those go rancid on me. I've had olive oil infusion go rancid on me because I allowed it to get too hot. Because I was infusing it before I understood all this, the differences. I was infusing it in my greenhouse thinking that would speed up the process, and it wasn't out there very long. And I'm like, wow, it's getting really hot out there. And by then it was too late. I could tell. You'll know by the smell that it's rancid. It smells wrong. You'll know. And then somebody asked, I actually answered this in Monday's video that I just shot this morning, but I think I did. No, maybe I didn't. Somebody was asking about, I can't remember if I covered it or not, but so I was showing vacuum sealing the mustard. So a couple questions are, well, can you can it? Yeah, you can can it. You can water bath can your yellow mustard if you want. It's not necessary, but you can. But mustard is made out of all these ingredients that are they just don't spoil. You just want to keep them protected from, the air and all that. So vacuum sealing that's going to do it. You think how I've never had yellow mustard go bad, but, at any rate, but if you feel better about it, yes, you can water bath can. It does not need to be pressure canned because of the vinegar content. Now, you can make your own mustard. And I would gladly do so because it's only like 3 ingredients. What is it? Salt, vinegar, and ground mustard seed. My problem is finding the right kind of mustard. I keep trying to get yellow mustard. I used to be able to get it, but now every time I buy organic yellow mustard powder, it always has that more Dijon kind of horseradishy taste, which I personally love, but Patrick does not. And not everybody in my family likes that, so if we're having a barbecue, I want to have a mustard that everybody's going to be happy with. So, but yeah, I mean, if you like that flavor, yeah. And if anybody knows where I can get yellow mustard, I mean, I see it, but I don't trust any of it because I don't want to order 5 pounds again just to find out that this is the wrong flavor. Patrick won't eat it. But anyway, mayonnaise is the other question I got was about mayonnaise. Can I vacuum seal mayonnaise? No, you can, but you still need to keep it in your fridge. So mayonnaise is made with raw eggs. And then here's the other thing about mayonnaise is that it is so easy to make that one on your own. All you need is eggs, oil, and spices, and a little vinegar. And I have a video recipe on that I did not think to link to under the description box. But it only takes like 5 minutes to whip up mayonnaise. And then, I never make a whole bunch of it. I just make it usually just when I need it. Like I'm making a potato salad. Oh, I need some mayonnaise. Or I'm making deviled eggs. I need some mayonnaise. I whip some up. 5 minutes. It's easy. And then if I have extra, usually I just stick it in the fridge. It usually lasts pretty good in the fridge for a while. But if I was to think to vacuum seal it, it would last much longer in the fridge. But it's still eventually going to go bad if you don't work through it. So no, you don't want to vacuum seal it and put it on your shelf. That's not going to work. But learn how to make mayonnaise. It's super easy. It's super easy. And when you look at the ingredients in mayonnaise, like before I learned how to make mayonnaise, I was like, I didn't want to buy mayonnaise anymore because I knew they use predominantly soybean oil. And I was trying to get away from all the soy products. So then I saw, oh, Kraft has an olive oil mayonnaise. So I bought it. And then I noticed after I bought it and started using it, it was then I looked at the ingredients. I'm like, it still has soybean oil plus canola oil. So they only put enough olive oil in there so they can say it's olive oil mayonnaise. But it's not. It's still mostly soybean and canola, the two that you need to avoid. So I'm like, great. So I'm like, I got to learn how to make it myself. And that way I can use just ingredients I know are good. I started off I did try making a batch once. My first batch with olive oil. It was gross. I hated the flavor of the olive oil. I love olive oil, but I hated the flavor of it in the mayonnaise. So that would tell you right there that the olive oil Kraft mayonnaise, there's not very much olive oil in there because it didn't have that flavor at all. So my personal choice is approximately a 50-50 blend of refined coconut oil, so you're not getting the coconut flavor, and the avocado oil. I did go strictly to just avocado oil, but what I found is by adding the coconut oil or mixing the two together, you have to melt the coconut oil first and then mix those two together, and then you pour it into your egg mixture. And sometimes it just depends on how thick you want your coconut oil or your coconut oil, your mayonnaise. And sometimes I can get a really, really thick mayonnaise with the avocado oil, and other times it just wasn't quite so thick. I don't know what the differences would be. The ingredients were all the same. But I found by using the coconut oil, I don't know, maybe I don't do half and half. You have to go watch that video. Maybe I do 1/4 coconut oil or 1 part to 3 parts avocado oil. And that way, once you chill it, the coconut oil helps it to take on, because of naturally it sort of solidifies. And so that will help your mayonnaise to take on a more solid form. I've had some get a little bit too solid though. But then again, once you take it out of the fridge and it kind of comes up to room temperature, it's usually just right. So I see a question. What do you like for seasonings in your mayonnaise? I usually keep it fairly simple because a lot of times it just depends on what I'm using in it. But I usually use granulated garlic, granulated onion, a splat, I put in a little homemade vinegar. I never even measure it. Oh, there we go. It looks good. And salt. I usually keep it simple. And because typically it's being used on like hamburgers, or we just don't go through a ton of mayonnaise. But anyway, what was I going to say? So hamburgers, the potato salad, and or in making ranch dressing, when I make ranch dressing, where I'm adding seasonings to a lot of that stuff anyway. And then what's the other one? Deviled eggs. Like I said, deviled eggs. I knew something else. So anyway, okay, there's that question. Proportions of the diatomaceous earth to the chicken feed. I usually just put some in there. I don't measure it out, but a lot of times I'll take the chicken feed to fill the feeder. I keep the feed in here because I don't want to keep it outside, anywhere outside because of rats or whatever. So I just keep it in here. I actually keep it in this room under this big table over here. And I have some old coconut oil buckets. I'll fill those. So I don't always think to add the diatomaceous earth, but when I do, I'd put in maybe a quarter cup in each 1 gallon bucket, maybe an eighth cup. So it's just an estimate. But if you're not, if you don't want to trust me, which I wouldn't fully trust me on that because I just throw it in there, look up and see what other people do. I mean, just look it up. I'm sure there's somebody that can give you a better ratio. I just don't usually do that because I just throw things together. Because I think since that video, another thing that I like to do now is with their chicken feed is a lot of times I'll throw in some red pepper flakes, maybe some powdered walnut hulls, a little bit of that, and some granulated garlic, and just kind of mix it all in there along with the herbs that I dry from my garden, and I'll mix that in there. I don't measure it out. I go by sight, so I can't tell you any real ratios. But yeah, that video that published on Friday, I think it was at least from 2 years ago, if not 3 years ago. But it was before that certain substance that I had to remove from that video so I could put it back up was put in the taboo list on YouTube. Okay. How long will dried herbs be good for? I know I get this kind of question a lot on anything. It can be canned goods. It can be dehydrated goods. Here's the thing. If you've made something shelf stable or you buy shelf stable food, generally speaking, all that stuff should last indefinitely if all the stuff stays sealed, like stuff that you bought, it's already sealed. Your jar stays sealed. You dried herbs, it's not important for you to vacuum seal. I just do, just to help make sure that just kind of adds to their shelf life and keeping them fresh for as long as possible. But just like with any food, you're still going to lose a little quality and a little nutrients over time, just a little bit each year. But how you store it that's what's important. Are these things getting a lot of light that can cause damage and more nutrient loss? Are these things getting a lot of heat, being exposed to a lot of heat, which can do the same thing? But generally speaking, they should, as far as they're going to last forever, as long as they, don't get moisture in them. But the question is how much nutrient benefit is going to be left in a lot of your different shelf stable foods after a certain amount of time. Like I have some boxed milk back there. I keep forgetting I have that's several years old now. And they tell you should only, you should use it within 6 months or a year. It's the Gosner milk. And I stopped stocking up on it because it was getting harder for me to get around here. But I personally like it. It's a good shelf stable milk that's in liquid form rather than dried. I like the flavor of it better than powdered milk that's been rehydrated. But it's highly processed. So you're losing all the great benefits that can be in your milk because it's so highly processed so that it can be shelf stable. It has a flavor more of canned milk, like evaporated milk, which I do like. But anyway, it'll say expires such and such, use within this amount of time. I remember I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I had this. I should try this just to see, it's been in here for years. Still good. It's still good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And when milk spoils, that's one thing you absolutely know. When it's bad, you don't have any desire to want to consume it because it tastes terrible. And this stuff was still good. I used it to make, I think that's what I used to make the sauce for my creamy chicken lasagna that I made recently. And it's funny, I was going through my pictures looking for that picture because I'm working on my this in that video. I shot it this morning for Monday and was editing it. And I mentioned that because I did try dehydrating a little bit of it. And so I was like, oh, I got to get a picture. And I'm like, wait a minute. I did make this in 2021. So it wasn't that long ago that I'd made it last, because the video I have on it, when is that? It goes back to like 2017 or 2018. And I was thinking that was the first and last time I made it. I just kind of basically made the recipe up. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And I found that picture. I did make it again. So this is the third time I made it. But that's me. I just make recipes up. Well, here, I'm going to make up this recipe and I might as well shoot a video on it. Now I make a recipe on it, try it first, then shoot a video on it the next time I make it. That's usually how I work. Let's see. Can you dehydrate water glass eggs? I'm sure you can. People have asked me that before. I don't see why you wouldn't. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. That's the word I meant to. That's what I meant to say. So I think, in fact, I think once your eggs get, there's some point where water glass eggs start to get watery. And I don't know if it's like around 6 months or a year. There's somewhere in there they start to get more and more watery. They're still good. I've never done water glass eggs because I just haven't been interested. They take up way too much room. I'm just not interested. We live in a cool enough climate that I could get the same results just keeping my eggs unwashed and keeping them in the coolest room in the house. But then you're still looking at space. And so for me, it's about, if I'm going to preserve the eggs, I want them taking up as little space as possible. So I like to dehydrate them. So coming back to the question, Donna, was it Donna? Sorry, it wasn't Donna. Who was it? Sorry, it was Lori. Sorry, Lori. And then I'll try to get to your question, Donna. I'm thinking as long as I could be wrong, maybe somebody can help me with this. I think as long as they're 6 months or less that they've been in storage, not to say you can't after that, because if it's just water, if there's watery, they're still going to dehydrate up the same, I would assume. But I would wonder about the quality of them at that point too. That's just what I wonder. So Donna asks, with tinctures, do I use fresh or dried herbs? Thinking of making a tincture with calendula flowers in the garden right now. Well, Donna, a lot of that is going to be up to you. Most of the time, I like to use dried. And sometimes I like to use fresh. And there's a couple of factors in this. One is going to be if you're using a spirit to actually tincture it, then you can use either. But because a lot of times I'm using like homemade wine, which isn't as powerful as a spirit, and or honey, or not or honey, but what I mean is either wine with honey or vinegar with honey. It's going to usually be wine with honey because it tastes better. Though vinegar with honey is not bad. That's an oxymel. So basically I'm making an oxymel except for with wine. And maybe I'll use like 3 parts wine to 1 part honey. And the honey adds a nice flavor, and it's just something else that, and it helps preserve it and all that too. But when I'm doing that, I prefer to use dried usually, because when you're adding fresh herbs, well, the herbs are going to have a water content in them, which will then basically water down your extract or tincture, but really not by much. But for me, that, I can just pack a bunch of dried herbs in there and get a really strong extract doing it that way. However, like the rosemary extract, I find I love using fresh rosemary for that, and it turns out quite powerful. And in that, I don't use the spirit. I use the wine honey mixture. So homemade wine and raw honey. And I love that one. So that one is one of my antiviral, antibiotic things that I do. And then I also have the nasturtium extract that I make. So it's kind of really up to you and how, what you're infusing and so on and so forth. A spirit required for tinctures? No. Nope, it's not. Though some people will say it is depending on what you are extracting. So here's my personal opinion and standard rule of thumb. If it's a very woody, hard kind of substance, so dried turkey tail mushrooms, because they're a shelf mushroom and they can get really, really hard when you dehydrate them. Barks such as cinnamon or cinchona bark, or even things like uh, the star anise, cloves. These are woody type items. Dried roots like dandelion, marshmallow. Well, marshmallow can get really slimy though, just so you know. That kind of thing. Then I will be more apt to want to go with a spirit with those. So just like when you're making a tea or decoction, you make a tea, which is just an herbal infusion with your more delicate herbs, but with your more woody items, harder items like that, you're going to want to boil them for a little bit to be able to pull those benefits out. So I look at it in a similar fashion. But when it comes to herbs, you can use a spirit if you want more delicate herbs. Some herbalists will say don't use Everclear for those things because it's too damaging. I just don't use Everclear. I'd rather not. And I'm just like, you know what? That sounds like a good enough excuse to me to not have to use Everclear. And and it can be really expensive. So I'm usually also looking for the more frugal, kind of self-sufficient way to do things, which is why I started experimenting with homemade vinegars and homemade wines for making my extracts. And I found they work just as well as one made with a spirit. So that's why I do the way I do. And I feel totally comfortable using those methods with with a lot of my herbs. So my pain extract, that's why I call it an extract, because I'm using wine and honey. Um, it works great, and that's what I use in it. So anyway, that's my answer to that. That a spirit is not required, but you may want to use one depending on what it is you're looking at extracting. I am not a professional. I am not highly, highly educated in tincture and extract making. I did not take a course. I do not have a certificate. I am one who just kind of learns about things a little bit here and there, and then just jumps in and does it, and then makes up her own way of doing things. I find it works. Now, to make, yeah, the glycerin extracts, as long as it's a food grade glycerin, non-GMO, because you can get those, can be a good option for children. However, especially if they're too young to have raw honey. However, once they're a year old and up, I would suggest using raw honey in water, or raw honey and vinegar. Make an oxymel. Even if you did 3 parts raw honey to 1 part vinegar, so it's not so vinegary, but the flavor, it's like a sweet sour flavor. A lot of kids like that flavor. And I recommend that because it's going to be healthier than the glycerin. And I've talked about this before. So that's why I also like having these options. So when I started experimenting with the oxymel instead of using the homemade wine, because I have grandbabies now, I want to know, okay, how well is this going to work if I do the oxymel and do that instead, using the homemade vinegar instead of the homemade wine, so they're not getting any alcohol in it at all. I mean, the amount is small. It's fairly insignificant anyway, but especially considering how much you typically are going to give a child. But I remember when I was a little kid, my parents giving me that nasty NyQuil, and it was had a pretty high percentage of alcohol in it. I don't remember how much it was. I didn't know what it was in it, but I hated it. I just hated it. And it wasn't until much later I finally figured out why my dad goes, "Oh, if you don't want it, I'll drink it for you." And I'm like, "Go ahead." It wasn't until I was older that I was, oh, that's why Dad was joking around. Very funny, Dad. So anyway, what else do we got in here? Vodka, actually, yeah, vodka's the thing about vodka is just like the cheapest way to go. You know, I would recommend that. A lot of people talk about organic vodka and whatnot, and though obviously that's going to be ideal. The thing is, you're not typically taking a lot of it. And I think when you're talking about a spirit like that, this is an opinion. So just know this right off the bat. I haven't looked into this, but I'm wondering, let me put it this way, since a spirit is something that's been distilled, I'm not sure how important it is that it be non-GMO and organic. That's just what I wonder, but at either rate, it's usually such a small amount that I don't think it's something somebody has to worry about if they're really trying to save money, and just going down to the Costco and getting their cheapest vodka that they have on hand. I've used it. I still like to use my homemade wine as much as possible, but maybe somebody could share their thoughts on that in the chat, or if you're watching this in replay, in the comments down below. So anyway, let me move on. Let's see, dried herbs. Oh, I already answered the vacuum seal mayonnaise one. Oh, see, I thought I didn't write it down because I was talking about the mustard. Those two should have gone together anyway. Only have two more on here. Let's see, what can I replace wine with in extracts? Oh, we happened to talk about that anyway. You guys you knew what the question was going to be. So already covered. Cool. And then another question I've got a few times, and this has happened to me on occasion, where I might even have two exact same vinegars side by side going along, like, was it last year I made the two different dragon fruit? Well, they weren't different. I was making two dragon fruit vinegars at the same time. I got one started and with the peels, because dragon fruit's expensive, and I kind of splurged and bought some dragon fruit when they had it at the best price I've seen on Misfits Market. The yellow ones are best. The pink ones or red ones, whatever, they just don't have any flavor, but the yellow ones, I love those. Just cut it in half, eat it with a spoon. I love it. And the peels are edible, but they don't taste great. So what I did was use the peels to get the most out of those expensive chunks of fruit and made vinegar out of them. So I just was throwing the peels in as I was eating them, and then started the second jar. And so they were pretty close together at the time they were started. Yet one of them turned out really slimy and the other one wasn't. The other one was totally normal. They both taste the same. They both smelled the same. I mean, they were both vinegar. And once in a rare occasion, I'll get a vinegar that turns slimy. It does. I think it's only happened maybe 2 or 3 times. I know for certain one was that dragon fruit vinegar, and I don't remember which other one that happened with. So why that happens, I don't know. And if it's still good, it seems so, because they tasted the same. They smelled the same. These two vinegars side by side started pretty much at the same time with the same ingredients. But because I'm like, I really don't like the consistency of this. It's just kind of this weird sort of thick, like it's like it had marshmallow root in it. Because marshmallow root will do that. If you try to make a vinegar out of marshmallow root, it's great for your hair. But it does, because of the way marshmallow root is. That's why marshmallow root was initially used to make marshmallow, which was not these little dry things. It was more like a marshmallow cream. That's where that started. Because it's like egg whites. There you go. It's kind of like egg whites. So what I decided to do was to use that particular dragon fruit vinegar as my hair wash rinse. And I loved it. So now every time if I ever get another slimy vinegar, that's what I'm going to do, because it seemed like it made my hair even, much more soft. I have dry, kind of coarse type hair, but the slimy vinegar was great for my hair. So if that happens with your vinegar, if it still tastes and smells like vinegar, use it for something else like that. It's great. Or, even consider adding it to your chicken's water, or if your dogs don't mind. I say our dogs, my dog and his sister Luna, who's here quite often, they didn't like the vinegar in the water, no matter how little I put in her. I tried. but the chickens don't care. So, but yeah, you can do that. So if I get a vinegar that gets like the cam yeast, a lot of times you can just, which most commonly happens, by the way, with my pineapple rind vinegar, not always, but I find that once I strain it through a fine cloth, like usually, and you can strain out that cam yeast and usually it will taste fine. But sometimes the flavor stays in the vinegar, that yeasty flavor, which I don't really care for in my vinegar. There's nothing wrong with it. It's totally safe. That's the vinegar then I will give to the chickens because they don't care. It's really watered down anyway, so they probably wouldn't really even notice it. So yeah, so that was all the questions I had written down, and I'll see if I got any more I might have missed. So Darlene's leaving. Bye, Darlene. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. But I could talk about tinctures all day. Yeah, certain topics I get on. In fact, I'm kind of thinking that's tinctures, but I'm thinking of another vinegar video. Let's see, cheap 100%, 80, 90 proof is good enough. Yep, there you go. Hey, Alabama. It's half water, half alcohol, and extracts both components from the plant. There you go. Yeah, very good point there. So I'm trying to think. Oh, okay. I see your question there. Yeah. One herbalist said, use what you have. She said, if you have beer, use beer. Good. That's probably what our answer, that's, well, first of all, as far as, like in the Americas, I think I've mentioned this before. I don't I don't recall ever hearing about Native Americans using spirits of any kind to make tinctures of any kind. They did teas or they ate things dried or raw. That's mostly what I could find, or crushed and made it into poultices and whatnot. That's commonly how, unless I've missed something, I couldn't find any information. I tried finding information. I know I never heard of it, but I think last year I was looking for information like that. That was actually tinctures, and the extract making wasn't as common of a practice as some people think. It is nice though, because when you have okay, so during the time of year where I'm growing, I don't recall if I've already said this in today's show, but I'll say it again just in case. When I've got my valerian leaf, the valerian's growing, I got lots of fresh leaves, catnip, feverfew, and I've got a headache or some kind of pain, I'll just go pick a leaf out of each one and just eat it. It tastes terrible because of the feverfew mostly, not so much. The valerian's okay and the catnip's okay, but the feverfew is very bitter. That's why I like to eat all three of them together, because they work good together, and at least for me, that breaks up that bitter flavor. But I'll just eat it raw. Chomp, 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 and it works great. But in the wintertime, these things are not growing. Though oftentimes I can find places, more protected places, where my feverfew is still growing. But it doesn't look very healthy. But then in the winter, I want to have tinctures or dried herbs, and I can powder up and encapsulate, or just put in some water and drink it down, or make a tea out of it. I mean, I wouldn't make a tea out of feverfew because it's terrible. It's just the flavor. It's just prolonging the nasty flavor. I'm not going to torture myself like that. So if I was going to take it that way and I didn't have a tincture made, I would just put it in the smallest amount of liquid I could, and then just drink it down fast. That's how I do all of that now. I don't make capsules anymore, at least not for myself, because I can just put that stuff in water and drink it down. I save the money and the time of the money on the capsules and the time making them. And I'm not prolonging it by making a hot tea that I'm sipping on if it's a terrible flavor, like feverfew or cinchona bark. That's another one that, that flavor is terrible. Astoria, Oregon. Oh, so you're not Adam. I don't, but I know, I think I've said this recently, but one of the main reasons I set Patrick up his own YouTube account under Mr. Rain is that I can't remember if I think it was after I started my channel and he didn't have that yet. And we'd be on live, I'd be on a live show. Well, he decided he'd start hopping onto these live shows, but it would be under my account from a different computer. And he'd start saying stuff. I'm like, that's not me. I'm like, that's it. Patrick needs his own account for when he's getting into live shows and chatting, and stop pretending he's me. Because you're misrepresenting me. It works out good too, anyway, because then he can comment on his videos and people, the videos I put up. And then when he comments and replies to comments, people know it's him and not me. Okay. So let's see. I do feverfew tincture by the dropper full. Get a few seconds of yuck, and then the taste is gone. Right. It's great. It's great. So I do find, though, that my newest recipe that I came, because over the years I just kind of kept morphing the recipe to make it a little more palatable. Not just because of me. I mean, I'd put up with it, but I like to make it so that other people can handle it too if I need to give it to them. So that was part of the reason I started adding different herbs that had pain relieving qualities. I found the valerian leaf was the thing that really took it over the top, because valerian it is also a good for pain relief, and the leaf isn't strong like the root is. But it definitely has a better flavor and smell than the root, and is fairly mild. And then the catmint is also very calming and can help. Catnip, same thing. So combining those together, and also echinacea leaf is also good for pain. So I combine all 4 of them now, and then use the honey wine mixture, and all together, it's still not the best tasting thing, but it's a lot more palatable and easy to deal with. And by the way, which reminds me, so how long has it been? Almost 2 years now that I tore my ACL. I was in this room. We had friends over, I'm family. And we were looking at, I think I showed you one time, it's got books and stuff on it now, but right over here, that thing right there is the board holder. Down in here, under that tiger stripe pillow that my son made when he was a little boy, there's rebreakable boards. They're plastic. You put them back together and you rebreak them. And then Patrick made this for board breaking for our martial arts class. And we'd put the boards in there, and I have it kind of up on a stilt type thing for when we need it up higher for hand type breaks, elbows and palm heels and punches. And then we can set it down lower for kick strikes. Well, so Ryan was my oldest son. My oldest son, both my sons and me, we're all black belts in Taekwondo. And then Ryan and I have black belts in Wu Wei Kung Fu. Well, he was looking at that, and we're like, oh, we should break some boards, just for the heck of it. And so he puts a board in there and he breaks it. And then I'm like, oh, I want to do it. I haven't done it in a long time. So I did the same thing. I went through the board, broke it, no problem. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. This is like split second, because everything's just, how everything happens. And you can have all these thoughts going through your head so fast. And it was a fist strike through the board. And my fraction of a second moment of elation of getting through that board, even though I hadn't broken a board in years, was immediately followed up with me falling to the floor screaming in pain. Because something about that movement, and I was already kind of having a little bit of knee issues because of all the skirts I was sewing at the time, the skirts and the aprons, and using the treadle machine, and it was kind of putting some stress on my knee. That one tiny little hip movement I did, because you got to put your hip behind your punches. It's not just about the arm. A lot of people think it's just about the arms. No, especially if you're a little person. It's about throwing your hips and your shoulder and everything into it. And something about that little twist, even though I'd done it hundreds of times before, the knee I was down. I was in so much pain. I had never torn anything like that before. I've torn muscles before, overstretching and whatnot, getting sprained ankles from stepping funny, stepping in a hole, or doing something funny in dance and landing wrong, doing something in martial arts and getting my finger kicked or whatever. This was different. And I knew it the moment it happened because I never had that particular kind of pain before. And they practically had to pick me up and carry me. And they tried to put me in a chair and put my leg up on a chair for a little bit, and that wasn't going to work. I had to go lay down on the couch over here. And my friend asked me, "Do you want your pain tincture?" And I'm like, "No, I think no." And then I was like, I changed my mind. I think, because my stomach, from all the excitement and the, what do you call it? The adrenaline from the pain and being in so much pain had kind of made me sick to my stomach, which is why initially I didn't want that extract. I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that right now. But then the pain in the knee was so bad. And I'm just like, I couldn't move at all without it just making me want to scream. I'm like, I think I could really take this. So she went in there and got that. And I just said, give me a full shot of it. And this isn't like a strong spirit. Again, it's a wine honey mixture. And I took that, and I know it was within 20 minutes because that's the standard time. The pain eased up so much in my knee that at least I was able to tolerate it, as bad as that was. But my son was so worried about me. He's the captain at our fire department. He was about ready to call the ambulance. I'm like, don't you dare. I know what happened here, pretty much. I think I know. You're not gonna call an ambulance. I'm not gonna be rushed to the doctor for them to overcharge me 3 times more than what they should, just to tell me that I tore something in my knee. I know what happened. Something's torn in there. I just don't know what yet. And then I was able to narrow it down and figure it out on my own that it was the ACL. Just kind of going by where the location of the pain is, and then studying images of, knees and all the different ligaments that are in there. So I was able to figure that out. But anyway, can't stand the smell of valerian. The valerian flower actually has a fairly nice smell. When it first blooms, it actually smells fairly nice. It's not too bad. The elderberry smells a lot better, but yeah, the root is, it's pretty strong. When I made a really strong valerian tincture for Patrick to see if that would help when he has those sleepless nights. And you got to rinse the glass out. You got to. If you don't rinse the glass out, like, okay, the other day I strained out I think I was doing a live show that same day, later that day. I'd strained out that valerian root tincture and it stunk up my whole house. And after I was done, put that lid on tight, rinsed everything out really good. I still hadn't had a chance to get to the dishes because that was going to be later. So I wanted to make sure everything was rinsed out good. And even then, the smell of that valerian root just filled my whole house. It took a while for it to go away, but thankfully it did. It's strong, and that was especially strong. So, any remedies for reoccurring ear infections in dogs? So, I know I've listed a few herbs for dogs, like what I've used for Cody for pain, like turmeric, moringa, cinnamon, catnip, or catmint. That, those are good for pain. I know those are good herbs for dogs, generally speaking. As far as infections go, that's something I'm going to have to look into. In fact, I already wrote it on my notes this morning that I really need to sit down and then put together a list of herbs that are safe for dogs, and then maybe categorize them into a few different, like for pain, for infections, and maybe something else, and then do another one for cats, so that then I can do videos on these, but then I can also have this information for myself when I need it. I know what to do for Cody when he hurts because I'd created my own pain remedy for him, and I have an old video on that of course is not linked to, but you can go to my other YouTube channel and look up I think it says pain remedy for your pups. If you put dogs, you won't find it. I probably should change the name. I was just trying to be a little different in the name, but yeah, I think I used turmeric, moringa, catnip. What else did I put in there? Valerian, I think, is another good one when it comes for pain. I think that's safe for dogs, if I remember correctly. But anyway, I do plan on doing that. That's one of my projects that's going to be coming up, is I'll be doing some studying on some different herbs and such that is safe for dogs and what they can help with. Because I don't want to say, well, I know that these things are good natural antibiotics, like the list that I just had to reshoot and put back up that published yesterday on my other channel. I don't know how much of that's going to be safe for dogs or for cats. So I'm just not going to say it. Now you could look each one up yourself, knowing that, okay, these are natural antibiotic herbs. And then you can just type into your browser, is this safe for dogs? And you should be able to find right away whether it is or not. And I say, look at least 5 to 10 of those different pages that you pull up, because you can always get a little bit different information. Or you can even find antibiotic herbs for dogs and maybe get a list that's specifically for that. But again, make sure you're cross-referencing several different pages. Don't just trust one. Don't just fall for the first one you come across, because you can get different information. Valerian makes you sad and depressed. Huh. See, that's the thing. Again, we come back to, that valerian, any herb, no matter what it is, can have a different effect on different people. Now, there's what you usually look at when somebody says, well, this is good for that. They're either talking from their own experience, like me talking about my pain tincture, my pain extract, or what if you're reading on a website, then it's like, these are the things that work for most people. It's going to be common, but not everyone. Everybody's going to be unique. And this is why I think it's just amazing and wonderful and such a blessing that we have so many different herbs that do the same kind of thing. And that way people can find, so when someone says, well, what should I take for this? Well, I can't tell you that. I can give you some ideas, but I can't say whether or not that's going to work for you. And I can't tell you what the right dosage for you is going to be. That's why you need to sample. You start small. You'll know if you're going to have a bad reaction. You should know right away. Don't take that one. Try another one. If you try it and it's not working, but you don't have a bad reaction, then try increasing the amount until you find the amount that works right for you. In fact, one of the other videos I shot today, I don't want to, give any spoilers. I'm not going to do that. But one lady was sharing about a certain thing that she was taking to help with something, and how she did that very thing. She started small. She listened to her body and went from there. And she stressed that, and it was important that she did. I mean, that's, there's not, just like when you go to a medical doctor that's going to give you synthetic prescription medicines, what they prescribe to you, first of all, is just a guess based on what they know about you, based on what they know about that medication, based on how it's worked for other people. But it's also going to be somewhat tailored to you, again, based on what they know. It's still a guess, but they're not going to give that same dosage to this person over here, because they may need far more for far less, depending on them. I mean, you'll see that a lot with thyroid medication. Thankfully, we've been off the thyroid medication for 12 years, did it on our own. But I know, because that's the only prescription medicines we were ever on. That's the one I know most about, that Patrick and I were on 2 different doses, because what he needed and what I needed were different. And even then, they start off, it's a guess. That's why they want you to keep coming back and getting blood work done. It's not just so they can keep getting money, which I'm sure is part of it, but it's so that they can say, okay, this is too much. Let's lower your dose. Because that's what they had to do with me. They had me on too high of a dose. Where with Patrick, they needed to raise his up. So his dosage was like, I think 3 times higher than what I was taking. But thankfully, that's all long behind us. And we haven't been on the medication for 12 years. Are we coming up on 12 years or 13? Gosh, I don't even know now. I think we're coming up on 13 years because it was 2012 that we took ourselves off the medication. Yeah, we're coming up on 13 years already. I can't believe it. It was in spring. It was in May that we started weaning off. Well, one of us started weaning off, maybe because I started myself first. Then I wanted to see what would happen. And then I started weaning Patrick off the month after me. So we're just a month apart on that. Oil, vinegar, or alcohol for herbs. Adam's wife. What's the difference between using oil? Oh, you're asking. Okay, I see. You're restating your question up here. What's the difference between you using oil or alcohol or vinegar? The difference is if you're using an oil, usually it's because you're wanting to make some kind of topical thing. So when I do oil infusions, like for my muscle rub, I'm going to do that in oil because I'm going to rub it into the skin. I personally do not make oil infusions for taking internally. I make them for external use. And again, as I said earlier, I'm not sure how soon you came in, but when it comes to vinegar or wine or spirits, it really depends on the herb that I'm using. It depends on, if I'm doing a harder, woodier item that I think might need a little more of a boost, I'm going to use a spirit. If I'm doing more delicate herbs, I'm going to use my own homemade wine, but vinegar is going to be the same. The difference between wine and vinegar is just one's alcohol, one's vinegar. They're made virtually the same, but one has alcohol in it, the other doesn't, because the other one's been allowed to turn to acetic acid, and that's where you get your vinegar. So, but as far as a tincture or extract goes, they're going to be the same. You may need to take a higher dose of an extract that is made with vinegar and honey or vinegar and wine or just vinegar or just wine than you would with one that's made with a spirit. And the higher the alcohol content of that spirit, typically what am I trying to say? Typically the less you need of that. Like those who do like to use Everclear, which again, I do not, may only need a couple of drops, where someone using just a standard vodka may need about a teaspoon to a tablespoon tops. Whereas when I'm taking an extract I've made with homemade wine or vinegar, I might need at least 1 tablespoon to a whole shot. A shot is, no, let me take that back. Maybe 2 tablespoons, which would be about half a shot. Up to a shot, but I rarely take that much. So a shot, I think, is a little shy of being a quarter of a cup. I don't remember what the exact amount of that is, of the shot. So, okay, let me look. Anything else here? Not seeing anything. And I can't remember if there was anything else I was going to say. Dusty is my name. Thank you, Dusty. Okay, not my name, her name. In case anybody's watching me and like, what are you talking about? Your name's not Dusty, your name's Heidi. No, I haven't checked out. People, here's the thing, Rachel, is that if you're saying that to me, people throw names and books and resources at me all the time. I'm never going to remember them all. I'm not going to think to write them down. And usually that's something I do when I want to dig in and start finding information. And I never use one source alone, ever. I had made that mistake in the beginning. Oh, this sounds good. Let me go with this. And then found out some of the stuff I picked up was wrong information. And the one I use quite often is when I was trying to find out whether or not calendula leaves were edible First site I came across said they were toxic. Okay, well, they must be toxic. I should have double checked and triple checked and quadruple checked and quintuple checked because I was wrong. That was wrong information. So I was sharing that information. At least it wasn't dangerous information, but I was sharing that information with people saying, well, you can eat the flowers, but you can't eat the leaves. And then someone said, oh, yeah, you can eat the leaves. I'm like, really? Wait, that's not what I read. So started looking, started comparing information. Sure enough, you can. So I'm like, I'm going to go out and try a calendula leaf just to see what it tastes like. And I was kind of surprised. I sort of like the flavor. It's not bad. Some people add it to food, just like I added calendula flowers to different foods. I've mixed them in with my tortillas, fresh calendula petals. I pull them apart, I have the whole flower, and then mix it in with the dough when I'm making tortillas or whatever. Just to because I've had a couple of years where just calendula just like crazy. I had so much calendula dried up. In the last few years, it's been harder for me to get a lot of calendula. So I use it very sparingly. I save it only for using for my infused oil for skin cream and well, not always this, but if I have enough that I feel comfortable using, then the infused oil I use for a healing salve. Though both have healing properties. I use comfrey and plantain in both of them, and they're very healing. But one, I try to focus more on the healing properties. So I add the like dandelion flower and the yarrow in particular. Cause yeah, I used to get tons. That's another one. I used to get tons and tons of yarrow. And now I have to be very sparing with how much of my yarrow I use. I'm sure I'd be okay with a perfume that smells like fresh baked bread. Right. I hear ya. That's like me preferring when if I do want to, do a perfume, like I was talking about the other day on the essential oils. I like the smell of orange or you could even do orange and vanilla together, orange and clove together, lime and vanilla. Oh my goodness. Yum. It's like key lime pie. I'd rather smell like food than smell like a flower. But back when I used to do, back when scented candles were the big phase and we didn't know they were terrible for us, I would always go for the food scents, like especially something that had like a buttery kind of scent to it, like a cinnamon roll scent or creme brulee or oh my goodness, those are always my favorite. Some kind of caramely type smell or maybe a cafe, uh, something that smelled like a coffee thing. Oh, those are always my favorites because food is good. I was trusting a plant app with good luck as a starting point till last year. Don't know what happened, but it couldn't tell me the difference between hostas, ramps, and lilies. Wow. I love the smell of pine. Oh, in fact, today I was like, man, my house smells so good. Why does it smell so good like pine? It's such a wonderful smell. Then I remembered that I just stoked the fire not too long before that. And the wood, so Patrick, he's been going up the mountain to work on our property up there. And so he's, clearing out an area for putting in a little cabin and whatnot and a garden and so on. And so that's why he's chipping up a lot of stuff is not just to not have all these piles, but also so we can use it as mulch and make some really rich soil up there. But then he's been also taking a lot of the wood and turning it into firewood. Well, some of the last stuff he brought home was very, very pitchy, had a lot of pitch in it. And so that went into the wood stove. And that's the kind of stuff you usually want to save when you really need a good hot fire going, which we do because it's been so cold here. But I'm like, oh my goodness, that wonderful smell is filling up my house. And it was so nice. Let's see. I had a plant app once. I tried a free one and it helped me with a couple of things and that was about it. And then I'm like, I'm getting rid of this dumb thing. It's about worthless. I haven't got one since because I want a good one. And I don't pay for apps. I just absolutely refuse to pay for any kind of app. I won't do it. I refuse. Even if I have to put up with some kind of stupid ad on it, I just won't. And I just try to avoid having a lot of apps on my phone. Only that which I absolutely need, like my email and my YouTube apps, because you have to have two. It's kind of dumb. So it makes it take up even more room on the phone. And I hate that so much. I wish I could just have one, because you have to have one for your dashboard if you have a channel, and then you got to have one if you want to just go watch videos. It's stupid. I don't know why they make it that way. Why? Same thing with Facebook. Why do they have a separate app for Facebook and one for Messenger? I think it's dumb. So, and I kind of have to have both, because even though I very rarely communicate through Facebook, I have one person. What I should do is just tell her, maybe you should text me instead. But one of the ladies that buys eggs from us, she usually uses Messenger to let me know, hey, do you got any eggs ready? Stuff like that. So it's like you kind of feel like you got to have. I just realized my mic was pointed a weird direction. I'm assuming you can all hear me just fine. But yeah. Anyway, I hate that. I hate all the crud. I hate having a lot of crud on my phone. Yahoo and Gmail are combined. I didn't know that. I have Google Lens. It's more helpful for me than. I'm going to write that down. Is it free? I hate these things where you're like, oh, good, here's a free one. And then I think maybe that's what it was with that other plant. Yeah, maybe it starts out as free. They try to get you hooked, and then it's like, okay, now we want to charge you $200 a month. No, obviously, I'm using hyperbole, but oh, yeah, Dusty, it's been that way here. It's been like we're in our third week of absolutely no rain. Today is actually cloudy for the first time in almost 3 weeks, but it's still, usually once the clouds move in, it warms up. It is still freezing out there. Everything is still frosted over. Crazy. I've been having to take the chicken water. So I usually have 4 buckets of water for the chickens. But now what I've been doing, because I won't always remember to do this at night, is keeping 2 of the buckets in the power room where our battery bank is, and our, where our water collection is and all that rainwater collection. So I put 2 of them in there at night. So I know I can have some water that's not frozen, because my water tanks have been freezing too. So I can't get fresh water out of those to give to the chickens. And then I'll just, in the morning, I'll switch them out, put the 2 frozen ones in there. And then usually by afternoon, the ones that I stuck in there, if I do need to dump them out, so I can put fresh water in there. Usually everything's thawed out enough, I can dump them out and then add fresh water to them and then put them back in that room overnight. But that's weird. And same thing with the hummingbird feeders. I've been having to switch, well, at least the one out back, I've been having to switch it out every morning. And so I have wintertime, we have 3 hummingbirds every winter. 2 hang out in the front, 1 hangs out in the back. And every morning that one's just waiting for me to come out there and switch out that hummingbird feeder. So yeah. It's like, sorry, I'm a little late today. And it's out there, chip, 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 chip. It's yelling at me. But boy, that thing was mad at me the other day. So my last live show, which was today's Wednesday, it was Sunday. I said I was going to go out and start pruning my grapevines, which I did. I got quite a bit done, but there's still a ton more to do. That hummingbird was dive bombing me, and then it would fly, and it would just be like just a couple feet from me and just looking at me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because I have to get up on the ladder and I have to cut these things back and back this way and cut them down because they're growing. If you guys are new, you might not know. I have my grapevines so they go around these posts and beams that Patrick put up all around the deck for that purpose. And so they're up kind of high and it looks pretty and all that when they're growing, but it's kind of a pain when you go to prune them because I got to get up on a ladder. Well, this thing just kept, and finally it dawned on me, it was mad at me for cutting back those grapevines because that's where it perches on. But I'm like, you got a whole bunch of them. But I swear that little guy was so mad at me for cutting those grapevines back, but he's still got plenty out there. He's all right. There was one little tall one, a little spindly tall one I left, and this morning he was sitting up there just looking at me in the window. I love hummingbirds so much. But yeah, the one in back, two in the front every winter. And then come summer, I don't know if they're the same ones I have in the spring, because summer they're gone. And then when the weather gets cold, they're back. They know where to come in the wintertime because I always make sure they have something out there. I don't know. I know here in Washington, I looked it up. There are hummingbirds. They don't migrate. They just stay. And I can't remember what the name of them was. So I don't know if they're that or if they're just hummingbirds that have gotten lazy because there's people like me that have hummingbird feeders for them. But it does make it a little bit harder because in the winter you got to keep back and forth. You got to keep an eye on them. So I have several of them, so I can have some in the house that are not going to freeze and some out there. Because again, I won't remember to bring them in at night because they'll stay out on those hummingbird feeders till about the time I'm falling asleep. So anyway, but hummingbirds are I think they're such amazing, beautiful, wonderful creatures. I love them so much. But with that said, for those of you who love hummingbirds, here's a little tip. I try to remember to say. I was going to say this when I was shooting my video for Mondays, this and that, and forgot. When it comes to making sure you're giving your hummingbirds a good, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Don't go buy the organic blonde cane sugar because you think it's going to be healthier for them. Because hummingbirds can't have that many minerals. It can kill them. Because even your blonde cane sugar, it has too many minerals in it. So you should not use that for your hummingbirds. Just keep it the simple white cane sugar. Making sure you're using cane sugar. There's Domino's cane sugar and there's C&H cane sugar. I'm sure there's others, but it has to say cane sugar, not just white sugar. Because if you're buying white sugar, then it's the genetically modified sugar beets. And I don't recommend that. I recommend the white cane sugar. And that's going to be best for them. And so you just keep it simple. Because you don't want to hurt them. Don't add red dyes. You don't need to do that nonsense to them. People used to do that a lot because we're told that, it attracts them. They'll know where to find it, especially if you got hummingbird feeders that have little flowers on them. They know where to go. They'll know. They're smart. They know this. They figure this stuff out. But the funny thing is then once in the spring when I've got honeysuckles, they love the honeysuckles, and the nasturtiums and the blueberry flowers, those all seem to be their favorites. So they'll at least stick around for a while when those are blooming and then they disappear. I think there's just another place they like to hang out in the summer that has a garden. I know that there's a lady on the complete opposite side of town, and she lives in an area, but similar to ours. She lives in a neighborhood on a cul-de-sac, probably has the same amount of property as we do here, which is a shy 1/3 acre. And she grows so much produce in her little place that not only does she have enough for her and her family, she sells a lot of it and donates a lot to the food bank. But anyway, she gets a ton load of hummingbirds. Those things are all over the place. You're like, whoa, man, they're everywhere. So I think they all go to her place. They just fly to the other side of town, go hang out at her place over the summer. It's funny. So anyway, you guys are talking about stuff I don't know what's about without having to go back and read it all. But anyway, at least you guys are chatting with each other. My hummingbirds come to the kitchen window and fly back and forth to let me know the feeders are empty. Isn't that just cool? Yeah, I love that. They communicate with you. Please remind us of when you're at the same time, Mondays, or excuse me, not Mondays, sorry, Sundays and Wednesdays. I try to start on or before 11:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time because I'm in Washington State. So whatever that is to you, you can, if you don't know what that means, you can just put it in. put it in your browser, like what is this time in Eastern Standard Time or Central Time, or maybe you're in the UK or something. I think you should be able to look that up and figure out exact time. But I always schedule the video several hours before I go on. Usually it's one of the first things I do in the morning. When I get up and I start doing my work on YouTube related stuff, I'll usually answer some questions, answer some emails, and then think, oh yeah, that's right, I need to make a thumbnail and get my live show scheduled. So usually by the time I get to that, it's 5 or 6 o'clock a.m. my time. So maybe about 5 hours before I'm starting, 5 to 6 hours, I get the show scheduled. And if you have this is no guarantee, because the way YouTube works, a lot of people don't get their notifications anymore. But if you have your notifications set to get all notifications from both my channels, then you'll know. You should be notified. But again, no promises, because you got to trust YouTube to send you that notification. I don't know how many people have told me in this past year that I've got all my notifications on, but I never get any. I never see any of your content. So if you just came into the show late, go back and watch the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, somewhere in there. I think once I started, I think about 5-10 minutes in, I start explaining some things that I learned about what's happening on YouTube. I still don't fully understand why it's happening, but it's most definitely, I knew it wasn't just me, but it's far beyond even just being content like mine. It's far beyond that. It's worse than that, which isn't a good thing. And to me, it's not a good look for YouTube. What the heck do they think they're doing? At any rate, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. So, oh wait, could I say that word? That's probably going to get me in trouble too. Good gravy. I think notifications go to your Gmail account. Well, yeah, they'll go as an email. So you got to also check your spam folder, because it might be going in spam. And also, I think your promotions folder. I don't like to get email notifications, because I would get far too many. There's no way I'd be able to keep up on them. But you should also get the little red thing when you go into your YouTube. You should see your notification. It's like it shows you how many notifications you have. You should be able to go in there and see so-and-so's going live or whatever. Oh, I use Hotmail, so I never see Gmail. There you go. But you should still get notifications on YouTube itself, in that little list up where the little bell is. You should. It might not show you when one's been scheduled. I don't know. But if you've elected to be notified when, like if you see this somebody scheduled a live show, then you click on notify me to remind you. Then you'll get like the little number up there, and it will say, because I do that once in a rare occasion, and I do get that notification when somebody I'm following, when they go on live, which I usually still miss it anyway, because I'm usually not staring at that. I'm usually doing something else. And so I still miss it anyway. Usually, not always. Okay. Well, I should probably get going. I got to finish editing my this and that video, and I don't remember what else. I know I've got other things I got to be getting done today. I need to be working on taxes, which is always fun. I not only do my taxes, but I do the taxes of my son and daughter-in-law, theirs is usually pretty easy, but because, they bought a house and all this different stuff, things are going to be just a little bit more complicated. So I need a little bit more paperwork, and she has a lot of hospital bills. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to write all that off and get a deduction. We've never got a medical deduction because we never go to the doctor. So, and you have to have, at least in Washington State, it's like, if you have to spend $1,000, I think it's under $1,500. it's under $1,500. There's this, if you've spent less than like $1,492, then you can't write it off, any of your medical expenses. But if it's more than that, which hers are quite a bit, even after insurance paying, because she had a lot of health issues just kind of piling on top of each other. And she was having all these tests done and x-rays and this and that and the other thing. And insurance is only going to cover so much. So I'm hoping that that's going to help give them a bigger deduction. It'll be the first time I'll see what medical expenses can do. But yeah, I do that. And then I do ours, which are definitely more in depth. But I hate it so much for several reasons. But then once I get into it and start doing it, it's like, okay, let's just get this done. Let's get this done. Let's get this done. I just don't. But then you got to wait for all of the forms to come in. I think I have 1 or 2 more forms I'm waiting to come in. Some stuff you can get like PDF and just get it automatically. But other stuff, you still have to wait for the hard copy to show up. It's like, when I first started doing my taxes many years ago, it was required by law that everybody got their W-2s in by January 31st. It's not that way anymore. I think they say, okay, yeah, whatever. Well, we'll get it to you whenever. And it's like, I'd really like to get this done because I just want to get this garbage out of my way. Find out whether I owe, or maybe this year they'll be benevolent enough to give me back some of my hard-earned wages instead of sending it off to another country. I mean, I'm starting to get political, so I better zip it, because I'll either get onto a platform and never come down my soapbox, or I'll get in trouble. It's kind of funny. Here I'm an adult. I'm going to be 59 years old here in a couple months, and yet I feel like when I'm on YouTube, I feel like a child. Can't do this. You can't do that. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get put on timeout. Nonsense. Utter stupidity. Anyway, I really should get going. I like being here so much with you guys. It's really great. It's so enjoyable. And so again, for I don't know the how manyth time, I love you guys so much. Thank you for coming into my shows. Thank you for your support and just being here for me, for watching my videos, for giving me a thumbs up, even when you don't have time to watch, sharing them, commenting, and all of that means so much to both me and to Patrick. We appreciate it so very much. And I do hope that you all have a great and wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for being here. God bless. And we'll see ya. Bye.